Late Age Satis Desert Tombs. Satis is a river valley surrounded by sandy deserts. Once the valley was fertile and great swamps surrounded the great river. Now the desert spreads and the swamps grow fewer and smaller with each passing year. The valley is home to an ancient sacral kingdom of lizard-like humanoids. In ancient times, the high priests of Satis mastered the craft of embalming to preserve the remains of their kings. Since the dawn of the kingdom, tombs have been constructed in the desert to contain the mummified kings and priests. With the awakening of the god, the sauromancers, great mages of death and rebirth, have re-emerged and taken the place of the march masters. Through studies of ancient lore, they have perfected dark rituals that awaken the kings of old to lead the stirring dead, as the lizard kings lead the kingdom of the living. At the top of the Satisian society is the Lizard King. The king is the highest priest of Satis. Under the king are the high priests and the enigmatic sauromancers. After a great rebellion, most of the carnivorous lizardmen were slain or fled to distant lands. There is a widespread fear that the predators and their sobek masters will return as foreseen in the 7th book. The Satisians are somewhat slow in movement, but have thick hides that protect them from cuts and bruises. The lizardmen are cold-blooded and become exhausted very quickly when fighting in cold provinces. They have partial resistance to poison. The inhabitants of Satis prefer to live in warm provinces. The tomb kings and tomb priests are able to reanimate the dead. So, Satis has survived. Good on you, green boys. And I think this is the most powerful version of Satis, followed by Middle Age and Early Age, which is probably their weakest form. Let's check out and see how they're doing. National features. For a race, we have thick hides, we're cold-blooded, we have poison resistance, we prefer heat skills of +2, and we can reanimate dead. As noted above, we have lost our lizardmen slaves, which is unfortunate because those were very cost-effective units. So a little sad to have lost those. They are greatly missed in our expansion, and frankly, those tridents are still pretty viable in late age, so it's a shame that we have lost those. For military, we use infantry and undead. For magic, we are very powerful in death. We have a bit of fire and a tiny bit of nature, astral, and some earth. Our priests are powerful. We have recruitable holy 3s. We have undead priests that can reanimate the dead. Our dominions has the ability that our temples inside dominions spawn long dead. We get more of them in strong dominion. For scales and blesses, we have a heat limit of +1 and a death limit of +1. Building wise, we construct the standard forts of the era, which are citadels. Overall, Satis is in an alright spot. Their main power is actually not shown on this screen. It's going to be down here in the undead things that we can dabble in. For sites, we have the City of Tombs. This provides us with 3 death gems and 1 fire gem. Allows us to recruit the Keeper of Tombs, the Tomb Guard, and the Tomb Flame Wielder. We also have the Empoisoner's Guild, which allows us to recruit Poison Slinger and Empoisoner. So these are cap-only units. Overall, a pretty nice roster. Units and Sacreds. We have quite a wide roster with some repetition, but a decent amount of usable variety. Starting us off, we have a militia unit. He is a terrible militia unit. He is bad with his spear. He has no armor. He has 7 morale. What we can see here is the base Satisian lizard chassis. Do note that he comes in with 5 natural protection, has 5 poison resist, is cold-blooded, has swimming, and swamp survival. Not a particularly usable unit. Next up, we have Satisian heavy infantry. This is of the spear variety. This is pretty decent. The cost of 10 gold, 15 resources, 11 recruitment points makes this a pretty affordable troop, actually. Has that gold standard 16 protection, let down by his 13 piercing damage spear that he's only 10 skill in attack with. That being said, it is a length 3 weapon, which for repels is a little bit better in late age, as a lot of people have moved to length 1 or 2 weapons. However, not great at the attack value and not going to be particularly killing. For defense, we have a scale mail, halberd, an iron cap, and a shield. This is acceptable, what I would say is standard protection for a line troop. Next up, we have the City Guard. This is vaguely similar, has the same spear, has the male Kiros as shield, but he is not wearing his helmet. Not very smart, buddy. You should put on your helmet. Has standard traits. He has Castle Defense 1. This gives you extra defense when you're trying to defend a fort, so actually is worth Siege Defense 1.0. So one of these guys is equal to one human level attacker trying to break down your walls. Do note, morale is only 9 here. On that heavy troop, it was also only 9. So we are a little bit on the cowardly side, unfortunately. Next up, we have a Cetician Light Infantry. 10 gold, 5 resources, 11 recruitment points. Not particularly useful in my opinion. He does have a shield at least, but no armor. A javelin thrown by a relatively human chassis, so 12 piercing damage. Unless you're specifically throwing these into something light and unarmored like barbarians, not particularly useful, and will get quite punished by enemy range fire. Next up, we have a different variety of Cetician heavy infantry. This variety is using the same gear, but has switched out the spear for a falchion. This is a length 1 weapon, 10 attack, for 18 slashing damage. That is pretty acceptable. If I don't think I require the spears to repel, or I require extra damage to actually kill things, this is the better of those two troops, in my opinion. Next up, we have a crossbowman. Nice to see the lizards adapting and evolving using standard late-age technology here. 10 gold, 12 resources, 11 recruitment points. Not the cheapest, but definitely not the most expensive crossbow. They are all right with them, doing 12 precision, which is their 10 precision plus 2 for a crossbow. They have 12 shots. A little on the weak side at 11 damage, but remember, this is armor piercing damage. So we half the protection, and then we take 15% off of that. So we can actually knock something down quite a bit. Even something at 20 protection can still be plinked away at with a crossbow. Otherwise, they do have a scale mail cuirass and an iron cap, so against short bows or the like, they actually would do okay, and probably trade pretty decently there. Overall, I do like them, and I think they are usable. Next up, we have a Cetician medium infantry. Ringmail cuirass, a shield, no helmet, wielding a weak spear. I don't find these particularly great. If they at least had the helmet, I might be interested in. They're 7 resource cost compared to the heavies 15, but they're just too light, and they don't bring enough to be valuable, in my opinion. Next up, we have the Falchionier. These guys are actually pretty good. Unfortunately, not as good as probably the middle-aged version, just due to changes in your opponents. These guys are highly trained. They have better stats, but you pay for it. 13 gold, 26 resources, 18 recruitment points. That's not insignificant. But that 11 HP, there's some extra attack value. Having 2 attacks at 11 for 18 piercing damage. They have ambidextrous, which keeps that attack nice and high. They're armored with a plate cuirass and an iron cap. I like these guys quite a bit. Against lighter troops, 2 attacks at 18 damage, and you can have 3 of these in a square, is not insignificant. These guys would do great against, like I said, lightly armored troops, or maybe they could flank in from the sides and just wipe out units, while your heavier troops can hold the middle line for them. Overall, protection 17's very nice, and they have good head protection. They definitely work. Just to point this out, Plate Cuirass is 14, but remember that combos in with their natural protection. It's not just a plus scenario. There's an equation behind that, so that ends up being 17 on the body. Pretty good, pretty good. I like these guys, despite their high price. If you can get them, I think they're worthwhile. Next up, we have a Halberdier. Again, nice to see them on cutting-edge technology of the age with a halberd. That being said, they're actually good with this halberd. Recently, we looked at a nation that had 9 attack or 8 attack on their halberds, and that just didn't cut it. 11 attack, I'm much more interested. A length 3 weapon that's actually good enough to have a decent chance at getting repels, and 23 piercing or 23 slashing damage, you get a 50-50 on what actually hits, is pretty nice. And he's wearing that nice plate cuirass and an iron cap. So if you're not under like withering amounts of crossbow fire, these guys actually would be a pretty decent line troop. They will chop up a lot of other line troops. Yes, you will probably have casualties unless you're fighting an equally weak spear or something. But I actually like these guys quite a bit. Again, though, 14 gold, 22 resources, 20 recruitment points. These guys do not come cheap. You're definitely paying a premium for that, but at least what you're getting for what you're paying feels pretty good. Next up, we have the Poison Slinger. This is a cap-only unit, and similar to what we've seen in the past, they are unarmored, wielding a dagger and a poison sling. The poison sling does a poison cloud, and inaccurately at that. It's an AoE 1 cloud that does 3 poison damage, and we have 12 ammo. A mid-sized group of these, 5 to 10 of them, firing into an enemy line that's pinned down will make quick work of them if they are not poison resistant. Remember that they also buffed poison in 6, that you actually take some stat penalties while you're poisoned. So even if you're getting just a 1 poison tick, it's affecting your, I believe it's attack and defense skill. And that can be pretty significant for swinging the fight in your way. We are a nation that likes to get long dead out. Long dead, of course, as undead are relatively immune to poison. So these guys can just throw that poison cloud just right on top of your own undead who don't mind at all. And your enemy hopefully will mind quite a bit. That being said, they are cap only, 24 gold, 6 resources, 32 recruitment points is a bit on the pricey side. So you have to kind of pick and choose what you're going to be recruiting because our cap's going to be pretty busy. Next up, we have the Tomb Guard. This is again a cap-only unit, and this one is a Sacred. 23 gold, 29 resources, 28 recruitment points. Pretty good stats, 15 HP, 12 strength, 12 attack, 12 defense. Building a falchion that he's quite good with. Has a plate hauberk, an iron cap, and a shield. So by far our most armored unit here. And this plate hauberk is really nice. 22 on the body and 20 on the head is nothing to sneeze at. They add Wasteland Survival to our standard toolkit and our Sacred, of course. These guys on their own are not particularly the most impressive Sacred ever, but you definitely have seen worse than this. They tend to get incidentally blessed because we have better Sacred units that we're going to be focusing on. But even without that, I think these guys are fair enough. Yeah, you're not going to get tons of them because, you know, you're limited to your Dominion for the amount you can recruit, but when the ones you get, I think could be a nice little centerpiece on your line that can actually chop some people up and be resilient themselves. Next, we have the Tomb Flame Wielder. This is a second Sacred unit. These ones are old age because they are withered by the Bane Fire that they deal with. So another Sacred crossbow, which is pretty rare, and it's a Banefile crossbow, which is pretty disgusting. So standard crossbow, but in addition, when you damage somebody, you get decay on them. That is magic resistance negates, but nobody wants to be hit by decay. So if you have large Sacreds that are not the best against range fire, or a super combatant, or a god, a handful of these guys, definitely worthwhile. Or maybe mix a few of these guys into your standard crossbows, just to give you that extra little layer of scariness that says, hey, maybe take your expander god to somebody else, bucko. We're not interested in here. Hawk's Banefire crossbow menacingly. I like these guys. Again, I don't think that the nation particularly makes a bless that is useful for them, but even unblessed, I think that this crossbow is scary enough that these guys have a use. Final standard troop, we have a Desert Ranger. This guy can be recruited in all non-fort wastes. That might be relevant because we may go high heat and death, turning a lot of land into wastelands. And if that happens, well, we have a troop that we can recruit in there without a fort and has wasteland survival, which is pretty important because once you get to that point, you're looking at having a lot of starving troops generally, and these guys will not have that issue. They're armed with a falchion and a javelin. Again, I don't love the javelin, but I don't hate it either. I mean, maybe you can get some use out of it. More importantly, they're using a weapon that's actually decent and they're okay at it. And these guys are not quite our heavy troops, but just 1 point off. So very usable troop. If you happen to get a wasteland while you're just doing normal expansion, maybe consider turning on the recruitment of these. You're not going to get a ton, 13 gold, 16 resources, 18 recruitment points. But, I mean, just a handful of these guys, fine to add to your line or to flank or make a second wave or be out front to catch a bolt or something while they're throwing their javelins. Either way, I think these guys have some decent use. Heroes, Commanders, and Prophet. For heroes, we have 3. We have the Lizard Hero, just literally a lizard hero. He has a Star of Heroes, which is a magic morning star. It has Armor Breaker, which negates armor on damage, of course. It has the +2 attack because it is a morning star. He is not the heaviest armored guy, but he ends up getting 20 on the body, which isn't terrible. Maybe this guy could be your arena champion. Give him just a little bit of gear or something and let him go to town. He also has that bite attack, so that's rather nice for a otherwise one-handed, one-attack unit. At least now we have 2. Next, we have the First King. This is an undead mummy king. He is, I think, truly the first king. Comes in at 3 death, 4 priest level, meaning we could get him up to 5 if we made him our prophet. Otherwise has pretty standard undead stuff. He is susceptible to fire, has inspirational +2, and he has a leadership of 200, giving him +5 for morale. Could be pretty relevant. Remember, our troops are not the bravest troops, so that would be quite welcome. He is also a reanimator priest, which all of our undead priests will be, meaning that you can get into the revive screen. We'll look at that here in a minute. Finally, for heroes, we have the reassembled prince, again undead. In his case, he's a priest level 2, and he has that reanimator priest, 150 leadership, and an inspirational +1. A very usable unit. You'll probably just end up having him resurrect things because resurrecting is so good for us. But if you wanted to use him for combat or something, he's a pretty good undead leader, has some priest stuff he could do. You could do a lot worse than him. Moving us up to commanders. We have Commander of Satis. This is our 75 leadership commander, wearing the iron cap, scale mail halberd, and shield. Do note this is actual iron, it's not bronze, despite what it looks like. Wielding a shield, he's at least got 14 piercing damage, but that combined with his low leadership that doesn't allow formations, I don't think this guy sees too much play. More, we see the Lizard Lord with his 100 leadership and a falchion that he's good with. I like this guy as a leader. 95 gold, 21 resources, 1 recruitment point. Doesn't even break the bank. Comes in with 18 protection. Not terrible. Not terrible. Next, we have the Heroldul. This is a priest level 1. I believe this is a female lizard. Yep, female lizard here. We had a throne that mattered whether we were looking at male or female lizards, and we were pretty sure that lizardmen shaman are truly lizard men. Point. These guys, not going to see a ton of use. Priest level 1s are not the best value as resurrectors, and you would have to get them killed and resurrected somehow to do it. So not going to see a ton of these. What you might want them for is building temples. Remember, we do want a temple spam because we get undead raising out of temples, especially if they're in high dominion. So a few of these can very cheaply, for 40 gold, 1 resource, 1 recruitment point, get out there and do that. Beyond that, they might do some blessing. We do have some special undead blesses that I believe they have access to. So another place that maybe that would be useful. Next, we have the High Priest of Satis. This is a priest level 2. They also have the Temple Trainer. These ones bring in, I believe, the living temple snakes. So they have the banner, and they're otherwise okay, kind of just bags of HP, depending on what your bless is. We're not going to take a bless that's particularly great for those. So I think this one's kind of gone on the wayside a little bit, although getting a few of these guys would not be the worst either, because our troops are kind of cowardly, and that would be useful. If I'm incorrect on that, let me know, but I'm pretty sure that's what these guys are summoning in. Next up, we have the Lizard King. Lizard King is our recruitable, and do note here, not cap only, just a recruitable holy level 3. They are slow to recruit, 340 gold, 5 resources. Pretty fair for a priest. Has otherwise standard stats. Does have a falchion and a crown, but no other armor. Beautiful to have priest level 3s that you can just recruit, so that's always appreciated. Nice to get them for just easy blesses, and they can just do some smites for you, etc., etc. Next up, we have the Reborn. This is one of our possibilities for both a light combat mage and a researcher. 9 research for 70 gold per year is pretty efficient. They are guaranteed death 1, and they have a 100% chance of fire, astral, or death. Death 2 being pretty notably good. The other ones having their own use. Banefire with the fire, and with the astral being able to jump into communions. Overall, these guys are fine. If you are spamming them out as your researcher, some of them will be combat able, and even the worst ones can do something. So not a terrible mage for a researcher, to be sure. Next up, we have the Sauromancer. This is our best death mage. 400 gold, 1 resource, 4 recruitment points. Again, notice not cap only. Comes in with Fire 1, Death 3, and a 110% chance of Fire, Earth, Astral, Death. So you could get a Death 4 just right out of the bag. That's pretty handy, and you could Death 5 him with a staff really easily. You can, again, Banefire darts, etc., are pretty good there. Do note they come in at old. And while they are sacred, I think we're a lot more interested in twice-borning them than trying to make them not old. So I think that's the route this nation would prefer to take. They are also priest level 1s, although I really wouldn't want them doing blessing stuff if I can help it. I want to be using that high death. Quite good mage there, both some death evo or some bane evo or some skelly spam. In a huge pinch, maybe you could get this guy set up to do Phoenix Pyre and Soul Vortex, which is a really, really nasty combo. Put him in some really heavy gear, get those, and let's say Fire Shield up, and let him go to town as a thug. I think that would be pretty desperation. Make sure you've got him twice born if you're going to try to do that, because 11 HP is just a little on the low side there. But with Soul Vortex, that can be pretty sticky if you armor him up right. So a very, very powerful, useful mage here. Next up, we have the Empoisoner. Unfortunate. I really like Empoisoners. They could do some skelly spam or some animate tree spam, and then switch into flinging poison with their poison sling. Makes them quite good assassins, and they are assassin level 2s, which are nice. Pretty stealthy at 55. Overall, an interesting thing here, 9 research for 100 gold is not as efficient as our other one, and this is a cap only. We have the option for assassins, which is always nice. In the right circumstances, these can do a lot of work for you. Like I said, unfortunately, we also have the Keeper of Tombs. This is our another cap only unit. One of the few things in Dominion 6, which was so ridiculously good that they had to nerf. He used to not be slow to recruit. They had to double his recruitment time to bring Satis down from its possibly strongest nation in the game that it was briefly because of this guy. Let's see why. 155 gold, 1 resource, 4 recruitment points. So slow to recruit, cap only. Do note though, you do have 3 recruitment points. So this isn't as slow as it was in the past. Otherwise, relatively normal stats with 11 HP, etc. Good magic resist. Again, that low morale. 9 research or 62 gold is very efficient. Too bad he's slow to recruit. But his main power isn't his Fire 1 Death and Priest level 2. His main power comes from Reanimator Priest. We have a Priest level 2 non-undead that has Reanimator Priest. So he can summon up Tomb Worms. And Tomb Worms are the magic sauce that makes late age Satis go, in my opinion. As mentioned, this guy is the reason that he had to be nerfed, because he was the reason that late age Satis was oppressive. Let's see why. First stop, let's hop in here. This is a Reanimator Priest, and let's have him reanimate. We could get 7+ ghouls. The plus will be based on your priest level. We can reanimate some Soulless. We could reanimate long dead warriors, and we can reanimate a Tomb Worm, 1 per turn. What is a Tomb Worm, you say? A Tomb Worm is this happy little chap. So 39 HP, 16 strength, 15 attack skill, 10 protection, 16 magic resistance on an undead chassis is very noticeable. 30 morale, no coward snakes here. Don't banish on me is his saying. He is sacred. Of course, as an undead, he's a poor amphibian. He's susceptible to fire 10, cold resistance 15, poison resistant 25, undead, inanimate, does not eat, and has spirit sight. He has an attack, which is a bite for 15 slashing damage, no poison included. These guys are amazing with the right bless. Big bags of HP with good morale, good magic resist, okay protection, and the sacred flag. And we can pull them in as free spawn, so there's no upkeep. So we are only limited by the number of reanimator priests or reanimators that we can get spamming these guys out. It's a slow burn getting started because at best you're only getting one every other round for a reanimator. But once you start getting that ball snowballing, or you start summoning in other people who can do this ritual or this reanimation, these guys can get absolutely out of control. So that is what makes the reanimator, or excuse me, the Keeper of Tombs so ridiculously good. Who would I make my prophet? I think I would be most inclined to make a Lizard King my prophet, because that will take him up to Holy 4. But I do think there's something to be said about doing a Keeper of Tombs. Bringing him up to Holy 3 should get you an extra, can I even show that? An extra Tomb Worm. Do I have my, I had one at least. Holy level, well, this guy here is a priest level 4. If we look at him and his reanimate, he's bringing in 3 Tomb Worms. So I'm pretty sure it's 2 at Holy level 3. And I will note here, we are able to reanimate Tomb Chariots. We'll look at them later, but quite outdone by the Tomb Worms, I think, in most people's opinion. Beyond him, you could, if you didn't want to do that for some reason, make your prophet a Lizard Lord, but having just a Holy 3, we can spam Holy 3s. That doesn't do anything special. I think for us, we're either looking at somebody who can do big reanimates or just getting a higher priest level to do some of our special undead buffing spells. So I think those are the 2 routes I would take there. As for national items, we have 1 national item. At Construction 9, we have the Jade Mask. This gives you the spell Rigor Mortis, gives you Death Magic +2, 3 magic resistance, regen, poison resistance, fear, dark vision. It is a Death Magic 6, Nature Magic 3 required and quite pricey with high head protection. I don't know of anyone who's ever made this, but I'm sure someone has. Cool item, but at Construction 9 might as well not exist in my opinion. For magic, we have quite a bit of magic that we can do. Most of it lies in Conjuration. In Conjuration, at 3, we have Pride of Lions. Not particularly in love with these. I wouldn't waste my gems there. Do note that we don't have native nature 2s. So we're going to be looking to import that if you wanted to use these. At Conjuration 4, we have the Sacred Crocodile. Probably a better use than the lions, but again, we don't really have native here. Unfortunately, we don't natively do Foul Vapors, which we would be very interested in with our undead armies. So be glad that we don't. Sacred Crocodile is a sacred chassis. We'll look at that here. Next up, we have Scorpion Man at 8. Again, Scorpion Man is amazing, but who gets to Conjuration 8 often? And even if you do, 12 is probably an okay price here, but I don't know how many Earth Gems we're getting in late age with a Earth 1 guy out searching for us at best. So a little disappointing on that. Next up in Enchantment, we start at Enchant 0, and we have the Grave Consort. This summons in a Priest level 1 undead. We have the Tomb Priest, again, Priest level 2 undead. And the Tomb King, a Priest level 3 undead. Note that these will all be Reanimator Priests. If you're looking for value, I think the Tomb Priest is probably the value for Long Dead, especially if you give him an Amulet of the Dead to boost that. Note, the Amulet of the Dead does not seem to boost worm production, which is really unfortunate because that would be ridiculous. The Tomb King is your better worm summoner. I believe you get 2 of those per turn with a Holy 3. Either way, you can summon in combat power / summoning power. Quite nice. We have 3 native death income, which we can definitely spend here. While we're in enchantment, I will say, I do think there's a very strong argument to be made. Grabbing Revive King early, you're going to struggle to collect all these free spawn or even just the undead that you are summoning in, and a Revived King has 100 undead leadership. For only 3 gems, you can get one of these per turn with just our native income. Also, this guy could be in early profit. That gets you another undead holy 3 that can start summoning in tomb worms quite early. If you get lucky, you could start with enchant 2, or this could be your first research goal. Grab him, profitize him. Could be pretty useful there if you're really wanting to push that undead production angle early for like an early war that has tomb worms available. Next up is divine spells. I really wish we had divine on here, that you could open it up and look. That's something I've been wishing more and more lately. Hampton here will be our guy. Go in here, cast specific spell. So of course we have the standard spells. We of course have our word of power. That is, you know, your we usually say smite for shorthand, but word of power is the real spell. This for me is going to be claim life, I believe. But we also have the undead spell. So we have protection of the grave, which is the magic resistance. This is AoE 1 version. We have the power of the grave, which is extra attack and attack speed. We have protection of the grave, which is extra magic resistance for a bigger area of effect. We have royal power, which is the damage one, so attack and attack skill. We have royal protection, which is magic resistance. Do note that this is magic resistance easily negates. That means that they have to fail the resistance check to get the resistance buff. So if you want this to be useful, you need to spam it quite a bit. So you're definitely going to want a Holy 3 spamming this spell on large undead armies. Finally, because we have a Holy 4, we have the Power of the Reborn King. This one is Power of the Grave, but affects all the battlefield. So Power of the Grave is the attack speed and attack skill. So very, very powerful here for a combat buff. Just, again, spam that. Do note you can't resist this one. So you would use that, and then you would spam royal protection on your troops. So very useful spells. Most undead nations have some variety of this. Beyond those, as an undead nation, I think we are interested in several things. First up would be Dark Knowledge, if you want to make sure you're getting every single death site. Remember, when you're searching death, there are a lot of events that have like a skeleton or something attack your searcher, so just be aware that you might need to guard them a little bit. Beyond that, we have the standard undead summons. I don't think we're particularly interested in those. In Alteration, beyond the standard buffing things, I think we are most interested in possibly invulnerability for some of our mages. We could just buff ourselves with 25 invulnerable to keep us safe during combat. Soul Vortex, as mentioned, is ridiculous. We could do Skeletal Legion, which would buff all of our troops, but do note they get disease. So this would be a desperation move against a large crossbow army, I feel. Darkness, though. While we don't have standard dark vision, we do use a lot of undead who are not bothered by this, and people fighting at a -6 takes your undead with unremarkable junkie stats and makes them very, very spooky for, let's say, a human that went from like +2 on defensive skills to -4 on defensive skills compared to a skeleton. So can be pretty good there. Beyond those, moving to Evocation. Again, we're mainly focused on death stuff. We have Shadow Bolt, of course. We have Banefire Darts. Banefire, remember, does decay. This one in an AoE 1. Bolt of Unlife could be something of interest. Shadow Blast. For 1 death gem, you get a 9+. Remember, we can get death 3 or 4s easy. So this could be 10+, 11+ area of effect quite handily. And it's 8+ armor negating damage that's resist for half damage, and it has a paralysis chance. A few guys spamming 1 or 2 of these as your armies clash is very spooky. And note that undead are not bothered by this, so you don't have to worry about friendly fire once the lines have clashed. The last one I'll say here is Banefire. Banefire, AoE 1, Precision 1, range 45+, and it has a Banefire effect in AoE 6 for 8 armor piercing damage. Very disgusting, and only 20 fatigue. And our sauromancers can cast this out of the box. This is pretty gross, and a huge decay area. That is a very, very spooky spell. Going to enchant in death, as mentioned, revive king. You could do like some reanimation stuff. I don't think we want to. We can free spawn it either via priest or via our dominion. But if you had to get some guys in front of you, you could. Revive king, as mentioned, I think is pretty good for moving things around. I don't think we do reverence. We have too many uses for death gems, and we have an okay efficiency researcher. So I think that is out. Twice born at 4 keeps our mage investments quite safe. Pale Riders are another decent use of death gems. Those can be pretty spooky, actually. At 6, we get Rigor Mortis. Again, we can natively pull in a Death 4 unit, not too uncommonly. And if you're using an undead army, they're not affected by Rigor Mortis. This gets the entire battlefield with just continuous armor negating fatigue damage 10, which is an MR check. But you can put the entire board to sleep while your skeletons just endlessly march and chop on. Finally, at 7, Life After Death. This is another spell that's changed recently. This used to be super OP for getting early undead reanimators. So we need a Death 4, which we can do, 4 gems. Affects the entire battlefield. This spell gives all friendly units a second chance to fight after dying in battle. An afflicted unit that is killed will rise again as an undead being and continue to fight. As soon as the battle ends, they will collapse and return to the realm of the dead where they belong. Pretenders, undead spirit form, and inanimate objects are not affected. This used to not make them go away at the end, so you could cast this and then have your mages or priests die, and you would get to keep them, but I believe that has been patched out. Going to Thaumaturgy. Of course, communions. We can do some light communions, and there are some circumstances where you might want to do that. We could do a light communion up to anti-magic, for example. That on round 5 of your script would be pretty nice while you've been spamming protection from the grave up until that point. Could be pretty handy. Beyond that, remember, we only really have Astral Ones. We're not going to get much more out of that. From death stuff, Terror. We can easily cast this. 5+ area that hits them with a pretty hefty fear effect. And at only 20 fatigue is not that tiring. Withering Bones, another nasty, nasty spell. Air effect 6+, and 16+ armor negating magic resist for half damage. Very, very killy spell. Remember, even at half damage, so 8, you still get 8 plus 2d6. So that is still a lot of damage for a pretty big AoE. And Wither Bones, unlike Shadow Blast, does not have a gem cost. So you could get probably 3 of these out before passing out on just a regular Sauromancer. And if he's higher in death or has some communion or a skull staff, he could get even more of those out. Yeah, I don't think any of those are otherwise too notable. We are not natively a blood person. If you broke into blood, standard things apply, but I don't think that's really going to happen. We're really focused on the other undead. I will show, before we move on from there, we have a variety of undead that can spawn in. I'm looking to see if I have anybody. These are pretty uniform. So these long dead are just the standard dude. Do note they have the same, they have better attack, than our heavy Statistician troops and the same damage. So yeah, they're better repellers than our standard troops, which is a little weird. They're wearing rusty gear, so they're not as protected, but this is just free spawn. And in this game, I collected these not that long ago. So in High Dominion, you do remember need a temple, but not bad at all for getting them. I'm looking for some different types. I know we've had some. I'm just here we go. Here's some. So these are some of those slave lizards that we used to have. They bring in a trident, and he's even better with that trident. 12 attack for 20. I want to say that these guys are not the free spawn. I think these guys I'm reanimating with a priest. You can see here's some regular long dead that I've also got. I don't think those guys free spawn in. I'm pretty sure these came from my capital, where I have somebody just doing long dead reanimation with some amulets of the dead, which I do think is worthwhile. While these tomb worms are excellent, having just a swarm of undead, and especially some killy ones, can have some use too. So I think the undead is quite important. As you can see here, I'm also getting some poison slingers. So I'm putting undead in front, poison slingers behind them to kind of be the damage of that group. So pretty powerful there. All right, let's bring all of that together. Late Age Satis is a nation with powerful mages, powerful priests, free spawn undead, a slow to recruit but very, very powerful reanimator who can bring in tomb worms, which are free spawn sacred units that are actually pretty decent depending on your bless. Very, 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 very spooky. Also remember, if you have a province with lots of bodies, reanimating Solus is not terrible. You actually can get the armed and armored version rather than just the naked absolute garbage trash Solus. So maybe worth considering having 1 or 2 battlefield scavengers essentially falling behind your battles, and maybe doing that just to, again, bolster your undead numbers. We can bait banishes into our tomb worms via those guys, because otherwise our tomb worms actually have a lot of magic resistance, so the AI is not really going to want to cast banishes at them. They will, but they would prefer to do it at weaker undead that they're pretty certain that they can get rid of. Scales wise, we love money and we would like production. In this game, you can see I took pretty trash scales and I've really struggled to get large amounts of troops out. I wanted to do some Falchineer expansion and I just really couldn't afford it. I ended up falling back on medium troops for a lot of my expansion, and it sucked and the attrition was high. Ideally, like I said, Falchineers, you can use some Tomb Guards. The crossbows are pretty usable, and depending on what you have to fight, can really help you give you that punchiness that you need. Ditto with the Halberdiers. Somebody else to take the charge of the knights and then have the Halberdiers move in to chop them down, or have your crossbowmen fire in to take them out, can be a painful but viable way of doing some expansion. As mentioned, losing our predator lizards has really hurt our cheap and efficient expansion that we're used to on Satis. That all being said, because we can transition into a non-gold economy, we can do summon in units and we can use death gems to summon in our leadership. That means we can actually take some pretty nasty scales. So you can see here I have Misfortune, I have Drain, I have Death, I have Sloth, I have Turmoil on this build. Pretty gross. Overall, I would say you could go the other way also. You could go with production and rely on troops. As mentioned, their troop lineup's fine. This is totally usable. Ideally, you'd stay out of the cold, but beyond that, I think these guys are at least decent, and they're relatively cost efficient for what they do. Not the crack troops in most cases, but we have all the tools. We have heavy hitters, we have lots of attacks, we have crossbows, we have an elite type unit. We have a kind of a tech piece here with the Poison Slinger. I think this is a totally usable roster, and our mage roster's a little bit specific. Like, we're not a wide path nation, but we're really good at what we do. And there's at least a little bit of a variety between summoning things, maybe some light thugging or super combatants, and some death magic evocation style. So I think there's a lot there. And of course, we have the spammable Holy Threes, which is really, really nice for claiming thrones in multiple directions, or blessing and buffing armies, or just having them do their word of power to do whatever spell you've got there. Can be pretty handy. Pretenders and scales. For pretenders, we have a decent choice, I would say here. Going down to our Dom 1, we do have a great Sauromancer. He's only 80 points, and he does bring in Death 2, and he has Invulnerability 15. 15 invulnerability is not going to save you from anything, but if you're going to go for just a thematic budget option, Death 2 isn't the worst thing ever for 80 points. We have the Serpent King for 90. Remember, he can shapeshift into a Danger Noodle. I'm not the biggest lover of the Serpent King, but he's okay. At least he has the same traits as our people do, so he'll like the same stuff and dislike the same stuff. I don't know what Nature Bless you're going for, but it could be a thing. Great Sage, as always, could just buff our research quite well. Could fit in as a research buffer and try to rush some spells if you were not going to go the Tomb Worm route. Moving up to Dom 2, we do have the Devourer of Souls at 150. He's not quite a Dave the Lion, but he also is a lot spookier. He has Devour Soul, which is a soul slay effect on damage. So it's not something you want to rumble with. If you fail that save once, you literally are done. You're dead. You cannot be wished back to life, resurrected, mummified, nothing. You are dead. Do not pass go. He comes in with high fear at 15, and he has a claw attack that is, while not stellar or anything, it's a magic 28 damage, 15 attack. I don't hate this guy. 15 protection is high enough that if you go hard skin, you could make a thing out of that. We're going to look at a build for him, so we'll come back to that. If you do want to go underwater expansion, the worm is available. I don't think he has the paths that our sacreds would really like, but that's an option. We have the man-eater again. I think he's fine. He's a pretty decent expander, although 210 is getting a little pricey for a wake expansion. A grand sorrow lich for 220 points. I think they've overpriced immortality on pretenders a bit. He does come in with Death Magic 3 natively. Does have 25 invulnerability. Maybe you could make this guy into something. He does have immortality. So maybe give him some fire, and then you could do Phoenix Pyre and then Soul Vortex. And not only is that relatively immortal on the battlefield, but then you also have true immortality to fall back on. And at 33 HP, he's a much better chassis for doing something like that. I don't love that though. We do have a Lich Queen. She is cheaper by 40 points and can basically do the same thing. So yeah, her HP is less, but that's 40 points. That's an entire scale. That's a little hard to say no to. Serpent of Chaos. Again, he's a fear guy. He has his own regen. He has death magic. I guess if you want to make sure you could take the underground, he has Dark Power 4. Maybe that could be a thing. You do have Dave the Lion. That is a possibility here. Beyond those, I would say Phoenix could be interesting if you wanted to go with the Fire Arrow Wind Guide route for your crossbows. That could be a surprise. It's again another immortal. Where are you? Dominion immortality. So you have to be in your own dominion for it. But he's only 110. So we're heading towards budget on that. And you're likely to take a high heat scale. So at heat 3, you would have, 3 extra firepower that goes into attack, defense, I believe protection too. So that could be something. He flies around pretty well, has a big heat aura. Your undead aren't particularly bothered by that, so that's okay. This is a nation that does actually want to bless that a Draco Lich could do, although Draco Lich is 220 points, a little expensive. I could see it. I could see a build for this. So I think if you are a Draco Lich enjoyer, this is definitely one that you could think about. He would mainly be looking at bone mending or whatever it's called, and possibly other things that our tomb worms are interested in. We may throw one of him together. We'll see. He's going to be very similar to some other things I'm going to show off. Going up to Dom 3, some people like the Mother of Monsters. She does have some pathing options that are pretty useful for us. Otherwise, we do have the standard suite of Titans. As usual, I'll point out the Netter of Many Names is a Titan that has Inspiring Researcher +2, Magic Power, and a Titan with only 20 for new magic paths. And she raises your magic scale. So if you wanted to do some like research rush thing, but you also wanted to have a Titan, she does have magic power, so maybe you could go with some magic scales. But remember, magic scales of 2 gives you -1 magic resistance in your dominion. That's really bad for your undead. They do not like that. So I'm a little leery here. I do like this chassis. I think she's really interesting because of this 20 down here, but maybe hard to use. She's maybe trying to do too many things. The old favorite Demi-Lich, still here, still can do what he normally does. Do note with him, consider Astral so you can actually move him around. I don't think you need a mobile Demi-Lich. I don't think he brings that much to the table anymore, but he's there. I know some people still swear by him. We have Fountain of Blood, who would be usable, but I think we have better chassis for the type of bless we're going to be looking at. All right, I've alluded to this bless a whole bunch of times. Let's actually go look at this bless. So let's start with Mother Monster. You're going to see variations of this exact bless on most of these chassis. So Her thing is she has a poison cloud, so you can take her and some undead out, and then whatever she spawns, if it has some poison immunity, and she can help you expand. You probably want to get her a little bit of gear. She's a rush deterrent because she's a pretty good fighter. Blessing wise and scale wise, we're kind of going Hellbless on this. I mean, you can look at that. She comes in at dormant with this build, which is a little bit of a problem. She has Fate Weaving. For anyone who doesn't know, Fate Weaving, first of all, just negates luck, which is hilarious if you run into the right opponent. But it also hits you with a penalty to your defensive rolls. So normally where you get 2d6 to, let's say, resist magic, you only get 1d6. And that is really relevant for Blood Vengeance. Blood Vengeance is when you hit me, you have to make a magic resistance roll or you take an equal amount of damage. Well, now I've halved your d6s on that roll, so you're much more likely to take the Blood Vengeance. If you're getting hit and trying to trigger this, well, Reforming Flesh is going to be really important for your Tomb Worms. This will make them regen, I believe it's 4 or 5 HP a round. And while they're doing that, they're doing Blood Vengeance to people who are hitting them. Pretty disgusting. In this version of the build, I do have Mending Bones. This just keeps those Tomb Worms in tip-top shape. Also, if you did go far enough and you were to like summoning in Tartans, then this would be able to heal their afflictions. So that could be pretty good there. Next one up is Cleegif, Master of Life and Death. He is the same exact bless with a riff on the scales. He's a little bit cheaper than she is, so you're able to take slightly better scales than she was able to take. Otherwise, very, very similar. Do note that he brings in the nature magic high enough for those harder summons to be awakened. So that is his plan there. And again, just the exact same bless. This is so ridiculously good on Tomb Worms. You could drop Mend Bones for sure. The rest of it I would say is standard. If you wanted to penny pinch, you could drop Fate Weaving and just go Reforming Flesh, Blood Vengeance. But Fate Weaving plus Blood Vengeance is so good. And remember, the worms have a pretty okay attack too, and Fate Weaving will help them land that attack also. Next up, we have Smiles. This is a break from that same blessing we've been looking at. For him, he's going to come in here with 23 protection while he has his hard skin bless. So 23 protection plus a self buff. You're looking at somewhere around high 20s, low 30s for protection once he self buffs. And I've taken enough death on him that he can put up Soul Vortex. So the combination of very high protection plus Soul Vortex plus Fear 15 is ridiculous. I don't know of anything else that has 15 Fear or higher. This is pretty unique how high it is. And he brings in the better option also in a super combatant on super combatant fight where maybe Soul Vortex isn't going to carry the day. Well, every time he hits you, you're rolling the dice that he's going to soul slay you. And that is really spooky. He actually brings in some positive scales in this version, a little higher heat, but brings in a little bit of production and some magic. And you'll note here that he is awake. So you could dormant him if you wanted, but this is an option to help you get off the ground because I do find year 1 Satis is really struggling quite a bit in those other builds. Here's Cleegith. This is a slight variation. I think I brought the heat down. Yeah, I brought the heat down in this version ever so slightly. So another thing you could do here, I will note, is Aethergate, and that's a way we would spin off those Astral Pearls. So we have Tartarn Gate, we have Aethergate. He brings in a little bit of glamour. You could boost that up and then get some gnomes or things like that. Let's actually look at a Draco Lich just out of curiosity and see if we can make that same bless that we've been looking at. So we need death and we need blood. I think it's like 7 or 8. So Blood Vengeance requires us to have 7 blood, and Reforming Flesh requires us to have 6 death. And if we were going to go the whole shebang and try to give the Astral 2, we need 7 Astral for Fate Weaving. Yeah, look at that. Look how negative we are. I don't know if we can get that deep. I would love not to touch that. We would need at least some dominion. Oh, we're so bloody close. We're so bloody close. -4. We do still need this, though. Yeah, we can't make it work to have him awake. As a dormant, wow. Oh, man. Okay, so he comes in dormant. He brings in all this. This isn't really needed year one. Your expansion is going to be terrible, and you won't have tomb worms to make use of this bless anyways. So this is a, you'll be sorry you bullied me if I survive year one and I awake. This is pretty nasty. The Drain 2 actually does give us +1 magic resistance for undead. That's not the worst. And with that bless on him, he's going to be an absolute terror. He's going to be regenning 20 plus per turn. He has the fear. He's going to be blood vengeancing you like crazy. He has a plague breath. So pretty spooky. I don't love a dormant dragon, I suppose. What the heck? We'll have plague spittle. You could be saved just in case people absolutely love him. But I don't know if that's going to happen. In conclusion, Late Age Satis is probably the most powerful of all versions of Satis. The ability to bring in those tomb worms with a really nasty bless on them, while at the same time having all the tools of Late Age, even if we're maybe not the best of the best at crossbows or halberds or falchions, all very usable units. A good mage lineup, they are using death. No blood natively, which would sure be nice, but that would just be cherry on top. And some all right mechanics here. We can eat some pretty bad scales and still be happy enough. And we get some true respawn that don't even have to be summoned in, which is always nice. Not overwhelming like some of the previous ones we've looked at for undead free spawn, but still pretty decent, I would say. All right, let me know your thoughts on Late Age Satis. One of the few nations that's had to be nerfed quite heavily by making this guy that slow to recruit. They were absolutely oppressive before that. And a cool nation nonetheless. I've liked Satis the whole way through. I think they have an interesting story going from just like not Egyptian lizard people to these swamp people with these sobek overlords back to their mummy roots and really getting into that. All right, always look forward to the conversation below. If you have a alternative bless, I'm very interested. As you can see, I quite like this bless, and we'll probably play one of these or a slight variation to them. Some fire resistance would help those tomb worms out quite a bit. Fire elementals are kind of their bane, but we can always buff fire resistance via a spell too, so it's not like we're helpless to that. If you enjoyed this one, don't forget to leave a like on the video. That helps an absolute ton and helps show Dominions to hopefully new potential people. If you are not subscribed, I hope this is the video that has earned your subscription. I'd love to have you back here and on the stream or in some of my other content that I work on. If you want to go above and beyond, you can always leave a super thanks on a video. You can join me live for a super chat or consider becoming a member. As a member of the channel, you get early access to videos I'm working on. Right now, that usually means these Dominion 6 pregame videos about a week in advance, but that also can be other things from time to time. All your support is greatly appreciated, whether you're a commenter, a chatter, somebody that points out strategies or makes corrections on the videos, or if you're a monetary supporter. All of that is appreciated and really goes into helping the channel grow and keep me motivated. We're in the home stretch here. Less than, I think, 30 nations to go in Late Age, and we will have covered every single nation. All right, builders, I'll catch you in the desert. I'll see you there. Babble out.